And it's chapter 16, somewhere between heaven and earth. Let's get right to it. All right. One summer afternoon in the year 1054, as a service was about to begin in the spacious church of Holy Wisdom, Hagia Sophia, at Constantinople, Cardinal Humbert and two other representatives of Pope Leo IX entered the building and made their way up to the sanctuary. They had not come to pray. They placed a bowl of excommunication, and this is B-U-L-L, not like B-O-W-L. They placed a bowl of excommunication, an official papal document, upon the altar and marched out once more. As he passed through the western door, the cardinal shook the dust off his feet with the words, "Let God look and judge." Dramatic. A deacon ran after him in great distress and begged him to take back the bowl. Humbert refused, and it was dropped in the street. So I guess the other guy took it out to him, and he held it out. The other guy wouldn't take it, so he just dropped it. For centuries, Christians have considered this incident the Great Schism, a great division between Eastern Orthodoxy and Western Catholicism. Its counterpart in the 16th century was Martin Luther's attacking the 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg, Germany, precipitating the schism between Protestantism and Roman Catholicism. This confrontation in Constantinople came only after a long and complicated process. Of the three major divisions in Christianity today, Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, the least known in the West is Eastern Orthodoxy. Okay, sorry. I read that sentence and I was just like, what? Not because I get the three different divisions, but I think I left out a word. Of the three major divisions in Christianity today, Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Protestantism, the least known in the West is Eastern Orthodoxy. It's becoming more known. I know people who are. I have family members that are. I am not, but most Christians in Europe and North America, if they think of Orthodox Christians at all, think of Orthodoxy as a kind of Roman Catholicism without the Pope. Such an uninformed response is understandable. Christians in the West, both Protestant and Catholic, generally start by asking the same questions. How is a person saved? What is the church? Where does religious authority lie? I think that's a big one of the reasons why, I don't know. I guess I'm only thinking about the people I know, but I think the question of where does religious authority lie, that sometimes that question can turn a person Eastern Orthodox, apparently. Sorry, I'm gonna just read. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the start of that particular paragraph. Such an uninformed response is understandable. Christians in the West, both Protestant and Catholic, generally start by asking the same questions. How is a person saved? What is the church? Where does religious authority lie? Protestant and Catholic Christians simply disagree about the answers. In Orthodoxy, however, it is not merely the answers that are different. The questions themselves are not the same. Orthodoxy reflects a distinctive history and a unique culture. The clue to Orthodoxy. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. What is Eastern Orthodoxy? Today, it is about 15 distinct churches, mostly in Eastern Europe, bound together by a common faith and a common history. The best starting point for understanding Orthodoxy, however, is probably not its basic doctrines, but its holy images called icons. Most Westerners can recall those characteristic pictures of the saints with golden nimbuses encircling their heads. These are basic to understanding Orthodoxy. The Orthodox believer who enters a church to attend services, for example, goes first to the iconastis, the wall of paintings that separates the sanctuary from the nave. There, he kisses the icons before taking his place in the congregation. A guest who enters an Orthodox home finds an icon hanging in the eastern corner of the living room and bedroom. If he is an Orthodox believer, he will, upon entering the room, greet the icons first by crossing himself and bowing. Only then will he greet his hosts. An Orthodox believer considers these images of Jesus and the saints not the works of a human artist, but as manifestations of the heavenly ideal. They are a kind of window between the earthly and celestial worlds. Through the icons, the heavenly beings manifest themselves to the worshiping congregation and unite with it. Thus, it is impossible to understand Orthodox worship apart from icons. In Orthodoxy, the idea of image is the key to understanding the ways of God with humanity. Men and women are created in the image of God. Each human carries the icon of God within them. Thus, a rather sharp difference between Eastern Christianity, Orthodoxy, and Western Christianity, Roman Catholicism, and Protestantism appears. Western Christians are inclined to understand their fundamental relationship with God in legal terms. The primary problem is guilt from sin, a legal concept, and how a person's guilt can be addressed to gain salvation. Roman Catholicism in particular elaborated this idea through its system of justification through confession, penance, and absolution. Later, Protestants and Catholics divided over the answers to this question, but not the question itself. The same Roman sense of legal order is reflected in Roman Catholicism's view of the papacy. According to Rome, Jesus Christ established on Peter a jurisdictional supremacy for the whole church. At its heights, as we shall see, the theory made the Pope the supreme ruler of the world. Orthodoxy represents an interesting contrast in Roman Catholicism. The great theme of Orthodox theology is not legal standing before God, but the incarnation of God and the creation of human beings to reflect more of God's image. According to Orthodoxy, when people sin, they do not violate the divinely established legal relationship between God and that person, a dominant idea in Catholicism and Protestant teaching. They reduce the divine likeness. They inflict a wound on the image of God. Yeah, I listened to a podcast about Orthodoxy, and the guy who was talking definitely said a lot of things, like, or if you just listen to like the YouTubers who are Orthodox, they'll talk about someone injuring themselves when they like sin. The person I'm thinking of in my mind right now actually was talking about people who watch porn, and he pretty much exclusively talked about it in terms of injuring yourself. I think it was I don't remember his name, but probably the most popular Orthodox podcaster. It's probably the one I was listening to. Joseph something. I don't remember. Joseph something or another. Anyway, that's how he talks, and this makes a lot of sense along with that. Okay, back to the book. Well, if I can find out where I am. Okay, yeah. All right, so I'll read that last sentence again. According to Orthodoxy, when people sin, they do not violate the divinely established legal relationship between God and that person. A dominant idea in Catholicism and Protestant teaching. They reduce the divine likeness. They inflict a wound on the image of God. Salvation, therefore, consists of the restoration or perfection of the full image of God within people. Christ, the incarnate God, came to earth to restore the icon of God in humanity. The major themes of Orthodoxy, then, are rebirth, recreation, and the transformation of women and men. The church is not a formalized institution. It is the mythical body of Christ, constantly renewed by the life of the Holy Spirit flowing through it. And it is within this community that women and men are restored to the likeness of God and made ready to join the pre-existing fellowship among Father, Son, and Spirit. Orthodox believers call the process theosis, or reification. The language of becoming gods troubles Western believers, but Orthodox teachers do not claim that believers become Father, Son, or Spirit, but use the language to picture the transformation of believers to become fit companions for eternal communion with and in the triune God. A champion Greek theologian, Athanasius, pictured Jesus fully sharing in the corrupted world of humans so that we could fully share in the incorruptible fellowship of God. These fundamental differences were present in the churches almost from the beginning, but the distinctively Eastern Christian faith appeared first under Constantine. Constantine's conversion was vital for the development of Orthodoxy because he created for the first time an alliance between state and church, and he made purity of Christian doctrine a central concern of the empire. Few events have introduced greater change in the church. Some independent-minded Christians regard these changes as the beginning of an enslavement of the church by the state, or even the fall of the church from the heights of first-century practices. For Eastern Christians, however, Constantine remains the holy initiator of the Christian world, the hero of that victory of light over darkness that crowned the courageous struggle of the martyrs. Orthodoxy tends to view Constantine's reign as the climax of the Roman Empire. Rome had become a religious monarchy. The emperor served as the connecting link between God and the world, and the state was the earthly reflection of divine law. The cult of the invincible sun, which Emperor Aurelian had made the imperial religion in the middle of the 3rd century, was by Constantine's day closely connected with the new religious view of monarchy. The emperor in the world was the same as the sun in the heaven. He was a participant in its glory and its representative on earth. Then came Constantine's victory over his rivals after he turned for help to the Christian God. God himself placed the emperor under the protection of the cross and in direct dependence upon Christ. Now we're at another section, and it is God's will in human society. This meant, however, that Constantine was converted not as a man, but as an emperor. Christ himself had sanctioned his power and made him the divine representative, and through Constantine's person, the God of the heaven bound the empire to himself by special ties. That, at any rate, is how Eastern Christians saw it. The Christian mind was fascinated by the conversion of Constantine. Not only did this mood prevent the church from modifying the absolutism of the empire in terms of the gospel, but also, on the contrary, that absolutism itself became an inseparable part of the Christian view of the world. Constantine believed in the state as the bearer of religion because it directly reflected and expressed the divine will for the world in human society. Long after Constantine, that conviction remained a hallmark of Eastern Christianity. It was centuries, almost until modern times, before the concept of the individual stemming from the Gospels resulted in a concept of the state whose power is limited by the individual's inviolable rights. Religious freedom was practically inconceivable in the shadow of Constantine. The symbol of the new era for the church and society was Constantinople, the new capital of the empire. During its long and illustrious history, as the center of a thriving civilization, Constantinople was the home of the Eastern Christian tradition and the hub of the new Byzantine civilization. It left a 1,000-year mark on the pages of history. Though through the centuries, this mystical vision of Constantinople as a holy city broadened and deepened, but it undoubtedly originated with its first emperor. From the first, it was about to be the Christian center of the empire. In the church of the 12 apostles, which he had built, Constantine prepared in the midst of the 12 symbolic tombs of the apostles a 13th for himself. Whoa, I didn't know that. Did not the conversion of the empire fulfill the prophecy of the apostles? This 13th tomb gave rise to the emperor's title as equal to the apostles. 50 years after the founding of the city, the religious significance was clear to all. The fathers of the Second General Council proclaimed that the Bishop of Constantinople held primacy of honor after the Bishop of Rome, because Constantinople was the new Rome, the city of the emperor and the Senate. Constantine discovered, however, that Christianity itself was divided and torn over differences in doctrine and practice. He was superstitiously anxious that God would hold him personally responsible for these divisions and quarrels among the Christians. If Christianity lacked cohesion and unity, how could it be a proper religion for the empire? Thus, Constantine and the emperors who followed him made every effort to secure agreement about the Christian faith. Constantine adopted a procedure already developed by Christians to settle differences of opinion at a local and regional level. He called the leaders of the entire church to assemble in his presence to agree upon and define the correct tradition. This procedure itself became a part of Eastern Christian tradition. From the First Central or Ecumenical Council of Nicaea in 1523 on the 7th, also held at Nicaea in 787, it was the emperor who called the council and presided over it, either personally or by deputy. Eastern Christians today place great emphasis on these general councils. They sometimes refer to themselves as the Church of the Seven Councils. The history of the councils, ranging over 5 centuries, gave us the elevating writings of the fathers and the creeds of the ecumenical assemblies, but this struggle to attain the truth also heightened the role of state power. It ceased to be a purely church matter. It acquired a new political dimension. Thus, Eastern Orthodox Christianity came to a painful fruition through these controversial centuries. The symbol that East and West were headed in two diverging directions came in 395 when Emperor Theodosius the Great, on his deathbed, divided the empire between his two sons. Honorius received the west and Arcadius the east. Theoretically, the empire continued to be one state with two emperors, but in practice, from that point on, the eastern and western roads inevitably diverged. Taking a quick drink break. Triple shot energy. Okay. We're at a section called Justinian and the removal of boundaries. Okay. Clear evidence of the Byzantine character of Eastern Christianity appeared under a second powerful emperor, Justinian, who ascended to the throne in 527. Under Justinian, who ruled from 527 to 565, the unique Byzantine blend of Roman law, Christian faith, and Greek or Hellenistic philosophy, with a pinch of the Orient, came to a tasteful excellence. In Byzantine art, greatly encouraged by Justinian, Christianity expressed itself in a distinctively Eastern style. The familiar physical world of human experience was subordinated to the supernatural transcendent world, and no work made heaven more real than the church building in the heart of the empire. When Justinian rebuilt Constantine's Church of Holy Wisdom, Hagia Sophia, and consecrated it in 538, he exclaimed that he had outdone Solomon. The dome, said contemporaries, hung as it were by a golden chain from heaven, a link in the hierarchy rising from the finite to the infinite and descending from the creator to the creature. It appeared as unfathomable in the sky. The mosaics under it shone with dazzling brilliance. In them, Constantine and Justinian were portrayed, the one offering to the Mother of God a model of Constantinople, the New Rome, and the other a model of the Church of Holy Wisdom. Here's a picture of it. The church. Okay. The link with Constantine was Apropos, for Justinian brought the plans of Constantine to their logical conclusion and, in turn, defined the future course of Eastern Orthodoxy. Justinian never distinguished the Roman state tradition from Christianity. He considered himself to be completely a Roman emperor and just as fully a Christian emperor. Here lay the source of his whole theory, the unity of the empire and the Christian religion. He defined the mission of the pious emperor as the maintenance of the Christian faith in its purity and the protection of the Holy Catholic Apostolic Church from any disturbance. Justinian always felt himself to be the servant of God and the executor of his will, and the empire to be the instrument of God's plan in the world. The empire had placed itself irrevocably under the symbol of the cross, so its purpose was to guard and spread Christianity. The changes from the earthly days of the faith were remarkable. That was the early days, by the way. The changes from the early days of the faith were remarkable. The early church considered itself a body, a living organism, a new people incompatible with any other people or any natural community. Theoretically, all people in the empire were called and could become members of this body, but even when the world would not become the church, because in the family of God and through it, people commune with another world, another life, one to come in glory only after the end of this age. In official Byzantine doctrine, however, the state was compared to a body, not in this earthly Christian sense, nor because all subjects of the empire had become genuine church members. The figure of the imperial body arose from pagan thinking. The state itself was conceived as the community established by God, and it embraced the whole life of its people. The visible representative of God within it, who performed his will and dispensed his blessings, was the emperor. Thus, the old boundaries between the church and the world were gradually effaced. The Christian community increasingly coalesced with Byzantine society as a whole. In Justinian's theory, the church almost dissolved. In Christian society, certainly, in Justinian's theory, the church almost dissolves in Christian society. Certainly, any awareness that the church is radically alien to the world and empire disappears. The fragile balance of these major elements in Eastern Christianity was easily upset. The power of the Christian emperor, the state concern over purity of doctrine, and popular belief in icons as windows into the unseen world all tumbled into violent disarray during the famous or infamous iconoclastic controversy. The conflict over icons, the next section. Okay. On the surface, this conflict, which raged for more than a century, was a disagreement over the use of icons. But at a deeper level, it was a disagreement over which things were sufficiently sacred or holy. Some said the Christian clergy are set apart by ordination, hence they are holy. Church buildings are set apart by dedication, thus they are holy. The martyrs and the heroes of the faith are set apart by their deeds, and they are normally called saints. Do they not deserve the same reverence as the clergy? From the 6th century, the church and the imperial government, as well encouraged. I'm going to restart that sentence. From the 6th century, the church and the imperial government as well encouraged the development of both Christian icon making and the honoring of monastic holy men. They did not realize that the uncontrolled multiplying of icons and elevated individuals would make people confine their Christian devotion to local shrines and figures. Ordinary Christians failed to distinguish between the holy object or holy person and the spiritual reality they stood for. They fell, some said, into idolatry. This idolatry had its precedents. In ancient Rome, the icon of the emperor was revered as if the emperor himself were present. Even after the emperor became Christian, the imperial icon continued to appear in army camps, courthouses, and prominent places in the major cities. Coins also displayed the emperor's image as a mark of authenticity. That reminds me of the Bible verse where Jesus asks, when he's asked about paying taxes to Caesar. During Justinian's reign, the emperor erected a huge statue of Christ over the Bronze Gate, the main gate of the imperial palace in Constantinople. By the end of the 6th century, icons of Christ or Mary replaced the imperial icon in many situations. Eventually, the icon of Christ appeared on the reverse side of coins. Early in the 8th century, however, Emperor Leo III, who was ruling from 717 to 841. What? That doesn't seem right. Sorry, 717 to 741. Launched an attack on the use of icons. Perhaps he was motivated by a sense of the empire's wrongdoing. Christianity taught that God punished the children of Israel because of their idolatry and forbade graven images. Perhaps the humiliating defeats and losses of the previous century, as well as the calamitous earthquake early in Leo's reign, were intended to bring God's new chosen people to their senses. In any case, before the end of the 7th century, feeling against icons developed and spread. After successfully repulsing the Muslim armies in their second major attack on Constantinople, which was in 717 and 718, Leo openly declared his opposition to icons for the first time. An angry mob murdered the official who was sent to replace the icon of Christ with a cross over the Bronze Gate. Whole sections of the empire rebelled vigorously. Mosaics were gouged from walls. Icons were daubed in whitewash. Leo secured the retirement of the Patriarch of Constantinople and the consecration of a new one who favored Leo's views. The iconoclasts, or image breakers, wanted to replace the religious icons with traditional Christian symbols of the cross. The book, parentheses Bible, the book, parentheses Bible, and the elements of the Lord's Supper. These objects alone, they insisted, should be considered holy. Beyond this, only ordained clergy and dedicated buildings possess a kind of holiness. As Harley K. Galantine explains the crisis, the monks and ascetics, along with an uneducated public, supported the icons. Even the monks were not all supportive, though some monasteries made and sold icons for a living. A thoughtful defense of their position came from a distant source, John Manser, who this is about 730 to 760, in a monastery far away in Arab-controlled Palestine, formulated the ideas that were eventually used to justify religious icons. Manser, better known as John of Damascus, his birthplace, was the greatest theologian of the 8th century. He is recognized today by the Orthodox churches as the last of the great teachers of the early church, the so-called fathers. John explains that an image was never the same substance as its original, but merely imitated it. An icon's only significance is as a copy and a reminder of the original. His argument is based on Plato's notion that everything we sense in this world is really an imitation of the eternal original form, which can be known only by the soul in the non-material world, writes Galatine. To deny, as the iconoclasts did, that any true icon could depict Christ was, in effect, to deny the possibility of the incarnation. Although it was wrong to worship an icon, the presence of an icon of Christ could instruct and assist the believer in the worship of the true Christ. Icons should be honored and venerated in much the same way as the Bible or the symbol of the cross. Thus, John cleared the ground for the acceptance of the icons of Mary, the apostles, the saints, and even the angels. But the pictures themselves were only reminders to help the faithful give proper respect and reverence to the reality. The later course of the iconoclast controversy is long and complicated. With the assistance of Patriarch Tarasius, who was from 1781 to 806, the Seventh General Council of 350 bishops finally assembled at Nicaea in 787. The council condemned the whole iconoclast movement and backed the position presented by John of Damascus. Iconoclasm, however, was not so easily eliminated. Strong iconoclastic tendencies remained in Asia Minor and among the professional military class, but as the 9th century wore on, the heat of controversy subsided. A synod called early in 843 deposed John Grammaticus, elected Methodius as, I need to reread this sentence. A synod called early in 843 deposed John Grammaticus, elected Methodius as patriarch, condemned all the iconoclasts, and confirmed the rulings of the Seventh Council. Orthodox churches today still celebrate the first Sunday in Lent each year as the Feast of the Triumph of Orthodoxy, to commemorate the triumph of icons. Okay, now we're at another section, East against West. Through these years of Justinian's greatness and the iconoclastic conflict, differences between the Orthodox Church in the East and the Catholic Church in the West widened. The doctrines and practices of the two halves of the Christian Church drifted slowly apart. They protested insertions in the creed. They insisted on different practices for Lent. They disagreed over the type of bread to use in celebrating the Eucharist. Given their different cultures and histories, it only took two ambitious leaders to drive a permanent wedge between the churches. In 1054, Pope Leo IX sent the firebrand Cardinal Humbert to Constantinople to work out an agreement with the emperor. The emperor was willing, but the Patriarch of Constantinople, Michael Cerularius, who matched Humbert's intolerance, humiliated the papal party and succeeded in provoking them into bringing that notorious bull of excommunication to the Church of Holy Wisdom. In time, military losses as well as heresies whittled away the great empire of Constantine and Justinian. Attacks by barbarian hordes. I just had a flash in my mind of the Lord of the Rings when I read that. Attacks by barbarian hordes were followed by the spread of Islam. In the late Middle Ages, the original territories of Greek Orthodoxy were reduced to Western Turkey, the Balkans, and Cyprus. In 1453, even Constantine's city itself fell to the Islamic Turks. After 11 centuries, the original Christian empire was at an end. The Christians became a minority in the community run by Muslims. Without an emperor as their head, they looked to the patriarch for political guidance. Muslims tended to follow the Christian lead and consider him the spokesman for the Christian community. Today, out of the vast empire that identified as Christian under Constantine, only Greece and half of Cyprus are still Greek Orthodox. But Orthodox Christianity had found one new area for expansion. We have a picture. Here, it's just showing the east and west. I might add another picture, because I earlier was looking online and I found a much nicer picture that also showed this this split. Okay. In spite of pressures from Roman Catholic Europe in the west and from Islam in the east, a narrow corridor remained open to the north. Boris, the king of the Bulgarians, was converted in the 9th century, and Vladimir, not Putin, but a different one, and Vladimir, Crown Prince of Kiev and of all Russia in the 10th century. The breathtaking magnificence of Constantinople and the awe-inspiring liturgy captured the loyalties of the envoys Vladimir had sent. Sorry, I'm going to talk like normal. The breathtaking magnificence of Constantinople and the awe-inspiring liturgy captured the loyalties of the envoys Vladimir had sent to investigate the Christian faith in New Rome. After they had attended services in the Great Church of Holy Wisdom, the envoys told their master, "We know not whether we were in heaven or on earth, for surely there is no such splendor or beauty anywhere upon earth. We cannot describe it to you. We only know that God dwells there among men, and that their service surpasses the worship of all other places, for we cannot forget that beauty." And thus the defense for fancying up your churches, I guess. Over the years, Russia made the aesthetic glories of the Orthodox Christianity her own. Gradually, Moscow came to see herself as the leader of the Orthodox world. A theory developed that there had been one Rome in Italy that had fallen to the barbarians and to the Roman Catholic heresy. There had been a second Rome, Constantinople. And when that fell to the Turks, there was a third Rome, Moscow. The emperor took this title from the first Rome. Czar, or whatever, is the same as the word Caesar. That is C-Z-A-R. I'm not 100% sure how that's pronounced, but same as the word Caesar. Just as he had taken his religion from the second. Even in recent decades, the Kremlin has stood as a reminder of a rich and inspiring past. The onion domes of Orthodoxy's former glory remain and point toward heaven. Cool. That is the end of this chapter.